Good morning, Michael Brian David.
Good morning to you.
So today we're talking about your reflections, and reflecting on the last year, I realized something, that 2025 didn't give me more. It took things away, and that was a gift. It stripped away the noise, the parts of my life that were successful but not alive. For a long time, I've optimized growth, productivity, momentum, and this year that metric changed. I started paying attention to how alive I felt. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Success without alignment isn't success, it's just performance. So going into 2026, I'm making it simple. I'm only doing work I'm genuinely stoked to do with people I'm genuinely stoked to do it with. So today we're sitting down, Michael Jared Donovan and Michael Brian David, to talk about what 2025 clarified and how to build a life with more presence, truth, and another word I'm throwing out there like Fitspan. This one is aliveness density. So, Michael Brian David, tell me about your reflections on 2025.
Yeah, thank you. My reflections on 2025 give me a lot of clarity and answers that the more I've been true to myself, the most authentic version, the more the acceleration with which I progress towards my goals. Being I think you alluded to this, but stripping away the noise, getting rid of the things that per se look good on paper or what feels like needs to be done, right? These pressures that we put on ourselves, usually they're concepts and ideas. And the more you say, F it, I want to do what excites me. I want to do what's fun. I want to do what just fires me up and that the progress and the results I get from those activities have just been through the roof and continually accelerate me exponentially quicker than what should be done.
Yeah, I call those like the reframing of the need to do's to the get to do's. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is very intentional that you're selecting those things, and other times it's just reframing, oh, I need to work out today versus I get to work out today. I get to move my body,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
should do this versus I have the opportunity to do this.
Uh,
And I think those are two separate things when you're intentionally aligning yourself with those things you get to do versus the shoulds, right? But I think because the shoulds are many times external. So there's the
uh,
reframing of your perspective from where you are looking at the thing you're talking about. And then
uh, uh,
there's the other side of people saying you should be doing this.
yeah.
And maybe you should, at some point, like I have a now 3-year-old son, and he should eat some fruits and vegetables so he can gain, the nutrients that he needs to grow up and be healthy now. But there's some point where when we look at a neutral thing, we go from, I don't think there are that many shoulds when you're a kid,
uh,
and then there's some point in that adolescent or, early adult stage where there become these external objective, depending on where you grow up. It could be, I
uh,
should get married, I should move out of the house, I should, there's expectations, right? I think is another way to say these shoulds, and those can feel everything from constraining to soul sucking, because
yeah.
it is not authentic, as you said. And you said on the last conversation that you discovered the most authentic version of yourself in 2025, and I wanna hear more about that.
Yes, I've been fortunate enough to have taken the biggest leap of my life and leaning into my soul's purpose, right? My calling, which is to wake up the most magnificent version that others know is there, but they don't believe is worth pursuing, right? Essentially, that's that's my best gift to the world. And me being the most authentic version of myself, this magic manifesting Jesus looking man that wants to share wisdom and gifts. I took a bet on myself and I walked away from my W 2, something that I've been very good at and I have a lot of love for, right? I was an aircraft maintenance technician. So that was my background over 12 years. But I was at the top of my game and there wasn't any more growth. There wasn't any aircraft. There wasn't any problem that I could not solve, right? It didn't matter how big the issue, I was always able to solve it, right? My mind found it as a game and was able to solve it. So I reached that peak and said, this is not growing me anymore. And I had this fire burning in me. And then I had already started these conversations and started helping my first couple of clients to reach this ultimate version of themselves. And I said, you know what? I need to go for this full time. Even if everything is not perfect, all the income and all the pieces are not as I would like for them to be positioned, there's nothing better than betting on yourself and going all in on something that lights you up and excites you because you learn and these are the regrets that people will have on their deathbed and I won't have it. I could die right now and I know that I've leaned into my most authentic self and it's such a liberating feeling because you're not scared of death. You're not scared of anything because when you're the most authentic version of yourself, it's so easy to not let the views of others weigh you down of what you should be doing, right? Because that is an external perspective. Ooh, I should be doing this. That's somebody else's language or concept. That's not you don't come up with that for yourself, right? What's in my best benefit or your son's is vegetables and fruits to get the proper nutrients. Okay. Yes, but the way that someone put it to me and it's stuck with me. Should is the language of shame. So staying away from that, finding what excites you, being that most authentic version is inevitable. It's just when are you going to let it out?
Hmm. I don't know about should and shame. That doesn't really resonate from me, but what does resonate, what when I heard you saying you left something that you were really good at, I wrote down that you left something that was good for others and pivoted towards something that was good for you. And it turns out
Beautiful.
it's also good for others, right? But
Yeah,
instead of just checking one of the boxes, it now checks both. And
love that.
I'm going to lean back into the new term I created, aliveness density. That is, the definition of this is how alive you feel per unit of time. So, not how busy you are, not how productive you look, but how much life, right? You said you're not afraid of dying. I think as I got into my early 40s and lost my mom in 2015, I was not afraid of dying. I was afraid of not living. And I think that probably resonates with a lot of people who are in things, doing things in situations that they don't feel alive, right? Their heart is beating and they're breathing, but they don't feel alive. And I think 1 hour of aligned work or play um, can beat an entire day of lack of novelty and of
Mhm.
numbness. and one deep conversation like we have that can light you up, and carry you on versus, 10 shallow work wins where you're just kind of doing what you should do. You're just checking the box.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I love this term, the amount of aliveness per unit of time. This is beautiful. This is what's worth maximizing. This is what's worth optimizing. And I think you hit it on the head. It would be in our best benefit to look for maximizing that. But even just the start is just once per day, finding something that really excites you, something that lights you up, something that's fun, purposeful. Usually there's alignment in being outside, something in nature, possibly some movement. These things lean in that direction, but they could be so many things. And the more of those that you get in, the more that the more answers you get along the way of what's working and what's not. Right. You said in the beginning, it was part of my journey of this growth is my mother said it to me very early in my personal development career. She said, I love the path that you're on. Just know the more you know, the more you're responsible for. Right. And once you see these inner cogs for what generates maximum soul fulfillment, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend it's not there. You now know where's the button and how to push it. And you can't pretend that it's not there and think, oh, I don't understand why things are not going my way or why I'm not enjoying myself. Push the button, right? Let's go, Chemical Brothers. Push the button, right? It's there. We all know where it is. And whether we tend to disillusion ourselves, we all know where that button is. We just, like everything in life, use it or lose it. You got to exercise that capacity. And the more you exercise it, the more you realize that you are worth following what lights your heart up, right? And letting go of that should expectation of what other people think you should be doing, right? The Courage to Be Disliked, that book really helped solidify that for me because it says all of our problems are interpersonal problems, right? It's we're worried about what somebody would think or how they will perceive us or what is their expectation. If we let go of all of that, we would all be the most lit up versions, blazing trails around the world with what fires us up. So I don't want to go
Yeah,
too
you
far into the deep end, but
no, 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 not at all. I'm wearing coincidentally one of the original like OG Lululemon sweatshirts
mm,
from like a really long time ago, and it brought to mind the in this color and almost like the hood here. There used to
uh,
be this might actually be
wow.
it. The manifesto that used to be on their bags that they gave you, and then they took
Mm,
away that and just made it simple with the brand. But it reminded me of one of the things that it said was do something every day that scares you. I think I pulled it up and I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, you said like reconnect with nature and creativity is maximized when you're living in the moment. Ignore the haters, including yourself. There's so many good ones on there. The pursuit of happiness is the source of unhappiness.
mm, yes, that's an
And
interesting one.
I was thinking last night that I think we talk so much about pursuing happiness. And if we reframe this, I'm gonna just belabor this and beat this into the ground that if we pursue aliveness, it's about having experiences. It's about there is no good or bad, right? Because at the end, as long as you're alive, as long as you make it,
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
you win. And it doesn't have to be good, and I think of the backpacking trip we did in October,
uh-huh,
unpleasant for a lot of people. But
including
in
myself.
those yes, in those moments, you feel most alive. right? When you're out of your comfort zone. So maybe this path we're taking towards happiness is sometimes, arguably sometimes, maybe not always, right? There's nothing wrong with pursuing happiness or
Mhm.
success or, like let's not paint this as, we're like the anti-success, anti-happy guys, right? I think no one would think that, but it is a different destination, and I think we really need to recognize that and delineate that sometimes it overlaps, right? There is a Venn diagram where aliveness and happiness overlap, but
Mm,
there are also times it's like an eclipse when the sun and
mm,
the moon sometimes align, but
mhm.
most of the time they're on their own separate orbits.
Yeah, what comes to me about this is, and just to add to the nuance of it, is the pursuit of happiness, right? I used to love that song, right? When it came out, I was all for it, right? I used to dance my heart out. But reframing it, the pursuit of happiness for me, I believe, is wrong because we shouldn't be pursuing it, right? It's of the have, do, be, right? I got to have the thing to do the thing that I want to do to then be happy, right? Where you don't need to search for the happiness. You could just flip that formula unconventionally and say, no, I'm going to be happy now and do the things that I love, which is what we're talking about: purpose, play, excitement, aliveness, and then have the success and the money and the recognition and all the extra opportunities that will come out of that. That has been my big shift this year, is just being first, being happy now, right? So I think you alluded to it, and I think that that's the right thing. We should not be pursuing happiness. Happiness we can already be. We can be pursuing aliveness, right? That pursuit, because now if you're happy now, the pursuit of it, you're enjoying the whole ride, right? Because the pursuit of happiness says that you need to make it to the destination to reach that goal, where the pursuit of aliveness says you are already happy and you are pursuing activities that make you feel alive, right? That say to the universe essentially, I am grateful to be here, to be able to move, mind, sane, right? Have the things, right? How can I fully express that? Right now, you're actually enjoying the ride, irrelevant of the destination, what it looks like, and what does that mean, right? You are unattached to the outcome. You are in love with the journey. And that's where the magic really is. Sometimes we get so caught up with making it to the destination, even on the hike, as challenging as it was, and all the deep growth that came out of it after. Sometimes you're on the hike and I'm just looking at my feet and I'm just step by step. I don't want to trip. I don't want to fall, right? I don't want to misstep, right? Because if I do, I can ruin the next few hours, if not the next couple of days. But then sometimes I just have to remind myself, look up, look up. Let's enjoy what's around, right? Like this is what I'm here for, right? It's not just going through this 3-day, 28-mile backpacking in the backcountry of Canada, but let's just enjoy the journey and feel alive right now. Look around. So,
You just said something right in that last sentence that I wanted to tease out, and then I wanna go in a different direction. How do you this is a question, this is not a rhetorical question. How do you know you're alive? Like literally alive, not like in this lit up kind of alive, aligned, alive.
mhm,
How do you
mhm.
know right now that you're alive?
I, the best way that I can come up with in this body, in this life, is feel an energy.
Period. You
Beautiful,
feel.
beautiful.
So, if you're looking for more I wanted to right, I wanna underscore this, right? Because if you want to feel more alive, we're getting to the how, right? You seek out things that make you feel more. And this is an important thread that I talk about a lot, because what is the importance of feeling? First, the prerequisite is that you're present, because you can overlook, you can miss those feelings,
Mhm.
those emotions, you can distract from them through work sometimes, through substances, through a variety of things, right? We can ignore, we can push away, we can blunt those feelings, not being present with them. But the beauty, if we are fully present, is we are ingraining indelibly greater memories, greater depth and richness of the memories that we're having. And as we go forward in our life, that that's ultimately all we have, right? Is the memory of the past.
Yeah.
And we rewrite that, right? And so it's like, if you want to have very, very rich memories, you need to be very present, and you need to do things that make you feel and get you out of your head and into your body, into your heart. And I'll just, before I pass
Beautiful.
it back to you, uh, about 2019, I was driving to Asheville, North Carolina from DC to do my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And I was listening to a book, and it was about listening. I think it was called You're Not Listening. It was written by a journalist about having better conversations and listening better. And she said something that I adapted. And I said, if you're in a conversation and you're distracted in any way, it's like you're listening with just one ear. But if you're really, really present in the conversation, it can be like listening with three ears. And when you listen with three ears, you don't just hear what's said, you hear what's not said. And the only time that happens is when you're really, really present. And so when you're having a conversation with a glass of wine, or something distracting you in any way, you're not listening with three ears. And it would be excruciatingly overwhelming to always listen with three ears. So I'm not saying that should be what we're normally doing, but I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
there are times to turn on that third ear and be really, really present. And I think I remember conversations from many, many, many years ago when I was really, really present. And I think ultimately that third ear is listening with your whole body. It's being
Mhm.
so present, you're feeling, right? And especially as men who are in touch with that feminine quality within us, it's that empathy, it's that deep connection that you feel, and it turns into like sitting on the bench with that person. And when you think in in those times, um, you were just, you weren't just listening, you were there with them. And many
Mhm.
times that's through story, or through, experiences that they're sharing that mean a lot to them, and so it means a lot to you because you're fully, fully present, and you're not trying to solve it, right? We're not turning on our male brain and trying to fix it, you know? We're just being there with them and listening. So,
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. You've said it a few times, and I really wanna highlight it. The key here, and if there was a transcript and it could just be highlighted every time it was said, I think people would realize it's one of the secret codes to being the most alive, right? This alive density, correct? The fact is that we are human beings, not human doings, right? And the more we can lean into that, right? The masculine energy wants to do more, wants to solve, and wants to figure out. But the feminine energy, the most magical and kind of in tune part of our core, the one that's really connected to our soul is the human being, right? Being present, being alive. You don't say doing alive. No, you be alive, right? And being present when somebody is sharing their thoughts, their ideas, their communication with you. I really love how you put it by saying the third ear is essentially listening with your body, is because the words that are coming out from the other person is the last 15%, I believe, roughly, of the communication. The other 85% is said even before the word comes out. And without going into a deep wormhole, this is a huge part of why there's so much disconnect right now between people, is because at least this is the closest to having an actual full on interaction being present in front of each other. Now, part of it is it doesn't matter the space in between us. Technically, we can still feel the energy as if we were standing in front of each other if we really tap into that. But let's without the invisible realm, we can see each other, we can hear tone, we can see the facial expressions, the movement. So we're gathering a lot more information, right? We're getting a more complete message of what's being transmitted versus what happens when you just send letters to somebody, right? And then all of a sudden, well, I might read it in this way, but my friend, my wife, somebody on the street might read that in a different way. And then all of a sudden now it's like playing phone. There's so much being lost in between that you can do your best to be fully present and listen with all three ears, but you're losing a lot of the core of the message of how the person was delivering, right? And we are responsible for, excuse me, the 80% is in how we send the message with love, with gifts, right? To share, to help the person grow, right? If you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. And then the 20% is on the receiver, is what state of mind they're in, what's their attitude, what's happened to them. Are they fully present? Are they listening with one ear? Just like this podcast, I'm sure there's going to be some people listening to it in one ear, but they're doing another thing, right? You choose those moments when to fully be present and gather all that information. You see a fuller message. That's why some people say you watch certain movies over and over again, and each time you gather something different. The same with books, right? Because each time you're listening to it more with your full body, right? You're not just listening to what's being said, but what's not being said. So I really love this highlight that you're putting out here because this is important. This is 80% of marriages fail because of communication. Communication, literally just the transfer of an idea from one person to another gets lost, gets distorted. We were never taught this specifically in school. Why were we not dissecting it like it's an art, like it's a skill, right? This is how you speak slowly with tone, attenuation, with gaps. This is how you listen. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's a great segue into I want to talk about next, which is zooming back out. We have had a great conversation so far, dove deep into aliveness density, and that's the new term. So I'm glad to unpack it. And I want to zoom back out. Michael Brian David, let's talk about our end of year review process and our takeaways and the transformation that we've made over this last 365 days.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for a great intro. Indeed, this year has been very fruitful. Uh, my process, I I took from Tim Ferriss's end of the year review process. I think it's a very beautiful way to capture and reflect and integrate coming into the next year, right? Because that's the most important part, right? We all have a lot of information. It's just if we don't do anything with it, right? We all know or can find that information. It's actually applying it and integrating it into our practice. So the Tim Ferriss process starts with identifying your peaks, your 10 peaks and your 10 lows that you've been that have impacted you throughout the year. And as I wrote down these peaks, doing the big 5 national parks in Utah, camping, did a family reunion in Spain, international family reunion with the nieces, nephews, going to all the regional events, quitting my W 2, backpacking through Banff. I mean, so much of this that you start seeing a trend, right? And the trend for me is in person. The most alive that I am is getting in person. Anything I can do to get in front of people, sharing in their energy makes me feel the most alive. And when it incorporates something outdoor, oh my gosh, that's the vaulted ceilings for me, right? That's just the whole universe is the playground, right? You're appreciating the nature, the beauty, the sunlight in your eyes, getting all the signals and the hormones, and I mean, so much can be solved by just going outside for 30 minutes a day, and you get bonus points if you do that in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the sun rising or even of just waking up, right? So seeing these trends is it doesn't surprise me at all. And it's beautiful to be able to capture it so that I know how to qualify anything that I'm doing in 2026 according to this. And I can easily make that distinction, right? You need to be clear so that when you ask the question, you say, is this supporting me? Is this helping me feel most alive? And you know the qualifiers, then you take the emotion out of it. You just now you get to leverage the logical side and say, nope, nope, this does not have my integral pieces. I'm not in person. I'm not getting to be outdoors. There's no deep work involved. Nope. I'm not that shallow guy anymore. If
I
you
have a
want to
quick
think back.
question. My trifecta I've said many times is being active outside with other people. And 2 out of those 3, and that came from many years of doing these and realizing, like, I love mountain bike festivals. I've been to NEMBA Fest up in, New England, up in Vermont, and, Sedona Mountain Bike Festival and a couple in Maryland and Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And then this year I went to a Yeti gathering down in Telluride and also went to one in Pennsylvania. And there's something about that, and it's just like peak experiences for me. And sometimes they have amazing clinics and music and just the vibe, but is like the culmination of being active outside with other people where you're camping, you're outside 24/7 for several days, you're surrounded by people, you can be as active continuously as you want during that. So then I was like, what else? Yeah, pretty much everything I do is like the top experiences are 2 out of those 3. And you also said deep work, which I think is it could be in the way I'm curious what you mean by that, but to me, that's also deep conversations. You and I sitting down, having a conversation like this in person, right? I mean, this is close, right? And so this is like 2 out of now 4 if we add that to the list, you know? And if we took a walk outside, that
Oh.
that's actually my other top thing over the last 10 years. One of my good friends was just in Denver for just 48 hours, and he was here for an event, didn't think he would have time, but then hit me up and we took a walk. And I've been taking walks with him several times, I mean, 10 times a year for the last decade. And it felt so great to do that. And we always have great conversations. We walk for about an hour and we
Mhm,
get to
mhm,
be outside. And it's not a fitness walk, it's a stroll, but
mhm,
we're
mhm.
we're out in nature. And I mean, we could dive into the neurophysiology of why it's beneficial to do all this, running outside versus running on a treadmill and all these kinds of things. But I
Mhm,
think,
mhm.
we've tapped into, at least for us, I don't know, maybe, I'd love to hear from others if these four are their secret sauce as well. But this keeps coming up year after year after year. These are my peak experiences when I have three, and now you just highlighted another, like deep work, deep connection, a richness, right? That
Yes.
uh, can look a lot of different ways.
Yeah, yeah. One absolutely, 1,000. I believe that's why we're so aligned because your 3 things are very, very impactful for me, and the deep work is exactly that, is just deep conversations, deep reflections, having it was our first podcast, right? And having those introspective questions with curiosity and asking the why behind the why, right? Just there's no for me. I've had, and I'm sure at some point we'll touch on it, but I've had my share of near death life experiences, and I realize at least, and this is part of my gift for everyone else, is there's no time to be shallow, right? Like they say, everybody else is taken, so be yourself, right? So give me your ultimate truth in its rawness, in its real kind of from here, not here. And that lights me up because that's the part that we can all really connect with, right? This tends to separate us. This tends to unite us, right? And so for me, that deep work is it coming from here, right? And you were alluding to it, and without going deep into it, but the whole why the walk outside does so well. I mean, just on a very high level, it's gotten forgotten, right? Walking has been so demoralized in a way through the whole activity realm. It's like, oh, it's just a walk. It's like, what? The research shows 60 to 70% of the world's problems can be probably avoided if everybody would go for, I believe it's 2 20-minute walks or 2 30-minute walks per day. I think just most of the problems, because, and why you say a walk outside, having a deep conversation is so fulfilling is you're activating all the different levels of our existence, right? Our physical body is moving, our blood is pumping, it's circulating. So the organs are functioning and the toxins are being removed and everything is being processed. So you're moving that. You are having a conversation, right? So you're using the mind to come up with different questions and asking, and well, what do you think about this? And then the answers come from deep inside and say, well, I feel that when I do this, it tends to give me this kind of a reaction or this kind of a feeling. So activating as many different parts and being fully present is very much a highlight for me in my 10 peaks. And you'll see when I start to mention some of my pits, you'll see that those things are missing. It's just me by myself on the computer having to do calls or doing the editing for my YouTube videos. Like, oh, I put here, luckily it's not a part of my life anymore, but working a W-2 in bad culture with amazing pay, right? And so many people fall victim to this and don't see that there's any other way out. but it's one of my quotes that I read. It says, "Work without love is slavery," basically, right? If there's no passion behind it. So I was getting to that, and that was also part of my reason for leaving. Is that the culture, the environment makes so much more of a difference. You can go to the most beautiful place in the world. Think about an island in Greece, or is it the mountains of the Himalayas? You could be in the most beautiful place, eating the most amazing food. But excuse me for saying it, if the people suck and they're shallow and they only thinking about themselves, you'll probably never go back, and you'll probably never remember it. It'll never make the highlight reel. The people, the energy that the people and the culture bring is so impactful. It determines, it actually overrides what you can try and manifest by yourself, right? They say your environment will trump your individual willpower 9 out of 10 times. And that's why, for both of us, being with people, being in person is such a primary factor. Because when you choose the right person, I mean, it's like just feeding off of each other and expanding, right? Where you choose the wrong people and it's just draining and just sucking the energy out of you. So just got to be mindful of.
Absolutely. I want to run through the rest of your wins and pits. Yeah, what you brought to mind is something I heard probably 15 or 20 years ago. Wise words that, especially when someone's selecting a career, they're maybe in high school, college, grad school, and that
Mhm,
phase of life. The question, well, even earlier than that, the question is asked, "What do you want to do?" Right? And really, a better question, this person said, is who do you want to do it with? And that could be if you're in a customer facing organization or something, right? Who is your customer? Who is the client? Who are you serving? And it
mhm,
could also be if you're working on a team, who do you want alongside you? Who do you want to be facing the client with shoulder to shoulder? And we talked last time, that was a subtle segue into shoulder to shoulder, because I think one of the other beautiful things that we talked about last time was face to face versus side by side. And one of the beautiful things, it would be pretty weird if you were walking with someone and you were face to face with them. Maybe we can try this in January. We can have a conversation walking, traveling when we're face to face. But I would be curious, the scientist within me, if we recorded conversations with the same people and positioned them, thousands of conversations, right? And we had them side by side sitting on a bench versus we had them face to face at a table, and we analyzed the transcripts or the body
mhm,
language, right? Using AI,
mhm,
that I bet there will be a measurable market difference between those conversations. The way we're listening and the way we're responding and the way and then if we hooked people up to like physiological measurements, like our empathy would be greater. There would be less responsiveness, is what I would expect when we're shoulder to shoulder, because we're literally in real life seeing the same thing,
mhm.
looking at things the same way, and then that translates figuratively to also doing that. But that's just that's an experiment someone else can do.
I mean, overall, I think the idea would be a pretty fun experiment. Instead of the podcast being our faces, let's put a visual backdrop, right? The mountains of Colorado, or the grass fields or something, or a beautiful river. And that's it. That's all you see. And you just hear our voices. And it's as if we're both looking at the same image, and we're just having a conversation side by side. There'd be a lot
Right.
less hostility. It would just be like two brothers looking at a starry night, conversing about the deepness of the universe. So that could be a fun one. We can maybe play with that one.
That's right. So let's get back to your wins, your highs and lows.
Yeah. So the last of my wins, right? So through finding the alignment. So yeah, the backpacking, the 3 days in Banff, right? Being outside, doing something tough, challenging. Started my soul's purpose mindset coaching work full time, right? This was a big one for me betting 1000% on myself for my success, starting in a new hitting other people's podcasts. I have enjoyed so much having these rich conversations. It's just so fruitful for me. It's the easiest thing I could do. I could do this all day. I just really love having great conversations. So that's one of my huge highlights. I've completed 1 year on YouTube, right, doing my individual talking head videos, putting myself out there. It was quite the challenge in the beginning, but it's been one of my big peaks. And I did my first in person event. That was also a path that I'm pursuing. And again, how can I best give value back in person, sharing, showing the magic, not just the how, but the why. That's been a huge highlight. This year, I've been mostly in alignment. So I haven't had as many pits, but most of it is, I think I've alluded to. So making outbound sales calls for people interested in my coaching. That was a very fun one. Editing, that's definitely one of my time sucks, right? Energy suck. It's just right? Me calling and reaching and fishing, and it's just not natural at all. Editing my YouTube videos in the beginning, it was just all just throw it out there, unedited on anything, and slowly the should a little bit is put a little bit of effort, add the captions, remove the fillers or the fluff, and that I start getting into the weeds. You can already hear my voice. I feel like I'm in the swamp. I'm in the marsh. I'm just like it's just quicksand. No, again, social media posts. I did it while I was at my W 2 and it kept me driven for leaving the W 2. But since I've left the W 2 and I've really opened up fully, that's on the bottom of the totem pole for what I enjoy doing. Again, sitting behind the computer, right? And just by myself, you start to see these trends. And then the one that I first alluded to was working in the W 2. So amazing pay, but bad culture, right? And money is a great byproduct, but if that's the only thing you're getting in a place, you're obviously doing it wrong, right? That should be the last byproduct, right? Yes, we are money driven, we need it, but for sustainability, it's better suited when it's the last thing needed to sustain it, right? When you enjoy the journey, you enjoy the process, enjoy the work, it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid for it because you enjoy it. And because you enjoy it so much, you'll be good at it. And because you're so good at it, you will get paid more for it. So it's the be do have. That was the big shift for me this year was that me quitting my W 2 and saying, you know what? I'm going to be happy now. I'm not going to wait until I reach a certain amount of money and I can do the certain things because I have that money. No, I'm going to be happy and fulfilled now. I am now doing all the things as if I was already making tens of millions of dollars, right? I'm playing sports 2, 3 times a week. I'm cold plunge, sauna 2, 3 times a week. I'm doing breath work a couple of times a week. I'm doing these podcasts. I'm already doing the things that I love now, right? And everything else will come as a result of that. And so, with that, and maybe I'm going a bit farther from it, but the next step for the Tim Ferriss, and this is the shorter version, is the do more ofs and three do less ofs, right? And for me, doing more of in person presentations, right? On the podcasts, right? Because I love this as a guest. I'm also exploring starting being a host myself as well, and more YouTube videos, right? Just putting out what I find out there in the world. It's just so easy. Where do I do most of my YouTube videos? On a walk in nature outside, right? Because it's just such a natural place for the ideas to flow. The do less of is everything behind the computer, mostly the YouTube editing, the social media posts. I've already left my W 2, so I don't need to mark that. And part of that assignment is the what's the 20% of the actions you did that created 80% of the results or the happiness, right? The 28, the 80/20 rule. Um, and for me, which 20% of people activities created 80% of my happiness? And for me, going to all the regional events. So in our mastermind, we have these regional events for GoBundance. Anything I can do to get around the other magnificent high achievers, go getters, asking the deep questions in person is just where all the magic is. And I love it. I'm a magic manifester myself. So the highlight for me, that's created the most happiness, the most takeaways, the most fulfillment is just getting around other people, sharing as many gifts as I can, and seeing others leave away saying, "You were the highlight. I came to this event so excited to be able to meet you in person." Right. And that gives me so much fulfillment because I said that, well, that's what I'm doing is just how much can I give back? How much can I just share to others so that they can unlock their best version? So full circling it, I know I come off the trail a little bit, right? On this circle of this journey, right? Is the one word, the one theme for me for 2026 is magnetize, right? I am most powerful when I am the magnet. I am the one attracting the opportunities, right? And so then this is just me now doing the presentations, doing the podcast, doing the YouTube videos, putting out what I do out there, and the right people will see it and come into my ecosystem and say, "Hey, I want more. I don't want just the information. I want the integration. Help me achieve this, right? And fulfill it. Help me be accountable and ask the questions." So that's for me where the magic is just I get to just be the most authentic version of myself. And the more authentic I am, the more powerful my magnetism is. So I am becoming the most powerful magnet of energy and light with purpose and play. That's 2026.
Love it. I love it so much. I want to just for people who are not familiar with GoBundance and what a mastermind group is, I just want to say quickly to give that context that, and you can refine this however you want, that it's a group of about 1,000 guys nationwide. You have a great group in Florida. We have a good contingent here in Colorado and Philly and California and all over the country. There's great local chapters, and then the regions get together sort of quarterly, and there's two national events a year, and then there's lots of smaller groups. They call them micro tribes, and many of the guys, because it was founded by five real estate sort of investors and realtors and people who made were very successful financially and otherwise in the real estate realm. It is probably predominantly still that, but lots of business owners who are adjacent to real estate and others. I mean, we're both in it. We're not full time real estate, and yeah, I think both of us joined last year. Is that right? First year,
I joined 2024. So I'm
yeah,
just now entering my third year. Yeah. So yeah, last
okay.
year.
Yeah. And yeah, we'll see each other again in a few weeks, the end of January for the winter event here in Breckenridge. Anything you want to add about?
Yeah. Just very quickly. It started off as the tagline was a group of healthy, wealthy men who lead epic lives, right? And the key word there is lead epic lives, right? Because it's not just about the money, right? It's that aliveness factor that keeps circling around is what else other than the money, right? Because they have these pillars and it's authentic relationships, extreme accountability, age defying health, genuine contributions, right? So yes, horizontal income is one of the pillars for sure, but it's just one of the 8 pillars or 6 pillars.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, I alluded to it earlier, but your environment will trump your individual willpower. So the conversations that you have daily, if not, no, sorry, weekly, if not daily, will keep you aligned and on the trajectory towards your ultimate goal. Because mostly what most of us need is the extreme accountability, right? We all want things and we all want to get to places, but if nobody else knows that you're working towards that, it's so easy to just wake up and say, ah, not today. I'm not going to do the training today. No gym partner, nothing. You know? So that's a huge, huge factor. And on top of that, you have these awesome conversations. Bucket list adventures is one of the pillars because it started off as somewhere in the mountains, right? They went snowboarding for a day. It was just a group of best friends for half a day. They snowboarded, then they and skied, and then came back, and they just started asking the deep questions about their life. How are their relationships? How's their family? How's your nutrition? How's your work? What's your tribe? Right, your personal growth, and now it's exploded. Now it's 1,000 people all over the U.S. And yeah, if you seriously want to accelerate your progress, be very picky about who you let in your circle and stay with the ones that are doing the things or going to the places or have been where you want to go and infinitely aligns you and speeds you up.
Absolutely. I think the 2 biggest benefits, I'll just say, and then we can move on, are being in the room at a table, especially in person, right, with people who are doing things that you might have heard about people doing this, but you're face to face with someone, shoulder to shoulder with someone who is literally doing it, like someone at the fall event who created a business with 0 employees, who scaled to $1 million a year and then $1 million a month, and had brought in $1 million revenue by mid-month when we were there in Lake Louise in October, and just completely automated, right? That seems like a fantasy, and I was sitting next to someone who had done it. And then on the flip side, the challenges, the pits that we're facing, right? That we're also surrounded by people who are in those same pits,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
And so we're going through the same things, both on the positive and the negative side together. And there's that brotherhood and
mhm.
being part of a tribe of people who really get where you are at that moment. So I think that's another big benefit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Realizing that you're not alone in it, and that gives us that camaraderie, right? We're social beings, right? What would this life be if we didn't have other people to share it with? So to see other people that have gone through it come out on the other side and say, "Hey, I've been exactly where you are. I know how tough it is. You can make it to the other side. I'm here. I've made it." Or you're with the guy that's also in the trenches with you, and you're mucking it out to get to that next level. Yeah, the camaraderie, that support is unparalleled, right? Because especially us as men, right? I mean, I we get so used to wearing so much armor throughout the day because we're just taking blasts out there, things and culture taking shots at you, or are you worth it, are you enough, and then are you providing enough, and are you doing enough, and when you get to these rooms you get to take off that armor, and the way that the guys ask the questions that go very deep right away, they'll ask you, what's your one thing this month, this year? Right away, and you're like, you need that clarity, and then they'll ask even deeper, and why? I mean, well, everybody else says it, yeah, but what's your why? And all of a sudden, you get clarity very, very quickly. And I would love to also say as well that GoBundance has been so successful for the men that it's also opened up a GoBundance Women, and the GoBundance Women's chapter as well. It is growing substantially because there's a lot of women that in my opinion, have been working so hard in their masculine energy that they also need other women that are doing it, instead of saying competing against each other, now collaborate, right? And that's a beautiful thing to see high achieving women in the same room, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, it's a tremendous group. We both participated in some calls with that. Yeah, some really impressive human beings in the GoBundance women. Anything else about your review, or do you feel complete?
Mostly, yeah, no, that's it. Magnetize is the big thing, right? So being the core component of magnetizing more is being truly authentic, right? Part of my healing and my trauma through the breath work was I need to stop saying I'm sorry so much, because I would do something and I would feel it's loud and adulterous, and I'm sorry, if I disturbed you, if I, you know, and no, no. And I've realized the reframe is, excuse me, right? That I don't have to apologize for being myself, right? I love myself now more than ever. And I don't have to say sorry. I could just say, excuse me, if that disturbed you, if that caused you some discomfort. Because of my extreme authenticity, it can shock people and cause them to take a step back, because there might be a look or a conceived notion of what they think will come out, but something different does. And say, oh, excuse me if I surprised you. And just leaning into that extreme authenticity, I think that more people will benefit from being themselves. So the courage to be disliked is a word that is a book that's really culminated a lot of the problems that I've had before. And I think of problems that a lot of people do have is their relationship with other people's thoughts or expectations. Because once you remove those, it's like removing the limiter on your car, right? Some of these really fast cars, they sell the Bugatti or the Ferrari, and they have 1,000 horsepower, but you really only get to access like 600 or 500, because most people would be too irresponsible to have that, right? But the people that really want to go for it, they have to work extra. They have to go in and reprogram that computer and say, nope, I want the full potential. Give me that full access to the power. And when you do that, when you are that true, authentic self, I mean, there is no limit, right? We are all magic manifestors, whether you believe in that woo woo or not, right? It's just, can you be so set on something and everything else aligns to it? So, a nice way to full circle my year, but
Beautiful.
magnetism, being
I
that
love it. I love
magnificent,
it.
powerful earth magnet.
I can't wait to see what you attract in 2026. What your
Thank you.
magnet
Thank you.
attracts. Yeah,
You're going to be a part of it. You're going to be a part of it, because there's no coincidences. The synchronicity is off the charts between us. And
that's
yeah,
right.
I'm loving this journey for sure.
That's
Loving
right.
and honored to be with it on you, be with you on it.
That's right. I was thinking earlier before I go, I was thinking of the Ramet Sethi book called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich," and he talks about living your rich life before you are rich even, what
Mm,
does your rich he doesn't the book is not, "I will teach you to become rich." It's, "I
mhm,
will teach you to be rich because you already
mm.
have this," right? And I was thinking of a reframing, maybe this is a book we'll co-author, "I will teach you to be alive." What does your alive life look like?
Absolutely love it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll dive into what my alive life looks like by highlighting some of the things for this year. So I kind of grouped it into some categories, and the first is adventure. The second is biking. There were enough things that just fell under the biking category for me. Business, community, concerts and shows, and family. And I did a lot of all of these when I looked back. The first thing in adventure was getting engaged in California. We did a 10-day road trip and got engaged and spent some great time with some good friends, whitewater rafting and hiking and backpacking and these kinds of things. There are five things under biking, under coaching, just the every one of these includes other people, right? Whether it's one-on-one coaching, it's public speaking, it's guesting on podcasts, a lot of the same things you talked about. And then even writing blog articles and putting that out there is a one to many distribution of my
Mhm, mhm.
aliveness. And so many great shows were blessed here in Colorado to have some great venues like Red Rocks
Mm.
and some other great and all of these shows, well, not all of them, most of them were outdoors as well, which is I could add music to the I'll add music to the trifecta, and we're now having deep conversations with background music active outside with other people. Becomes a little more complicated the more factors we, throw in there, but
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and then family-wise, trips with my brother and father, and spending quality time with my son almost daily is one of the highlights. We
Mhm,
also moved into a new house. But I summarize these into a couple lessons learned, and one was they're not really in any particular order, but I learned this year who is truly a good fit as a client. A lot more clarity on that. So maybe the theme when looking back of this year was clarity, and I alluded to that before when we kicked this off. But the a good fit for me is someone who's highly motivated, curious, and coachable. And that last one, I also just in the last couple weeks realized through a reflection from a friend of mine that that coachable piece is really, really important because I have a deep desire to be listened to. And we talked about this on our first conversation, right,
mhm,
around giving advice and receiving advice. And you give it freely, right, without but if someone is walking on a journey with me, if they don't want to actually do the work, if they don't want my input and my advice and my prodding, then they're probably not a good fit for
mm.
me because it means a lot to me that they take my guidance because they sought that, and I didn't realize that until very recently. But it goes beyond being coachable. It goes beyond kind of trusting the process, trusting me,
Mhm,
and I think that will come out a lot through the same things you were talking about. I also want to do more speaking, more
mhm,
podcasts, and especially creating social media on YouTube because I think it's a great platform to do the things that we're doing. The other, yeah, I mean, I'm excited about doing more of all of these things. I think one of the highlights was with one of our fellow GoBundance members, Clay Speakman. I did a adventure race in April with him, and I'm doing it again in 2026. And I've done a lot of racing, running, biking, triathlons, adventure or obstacle course races. But an
mhm.
adventure race was the first race I'd ever done where there wasn't an exact course plotted out. And
Mm,
you have to navigate and you have some choice. It's kind of you choose your own adventure type of race. And it's done generally with a team. And so we had a team of four people. And
mhm,
um, in many ways, it had some novelty, it had, again, being active outside with other people.
Mhm.
And I spent 5 hours in a canoe with one of my teammates, and we listened to one of his favorite bands as we're floating down the river for 5 hours, and then I saw them a few months later at Red Rocks, and I was just listening
Wow.
to them last night because there's just this sentimental significance that to something that probably wouldn't have that if we were just, sitting at a restaurant or something and it was playing on the radio, but
Yeah.
it was intentional, and I didn't know about them at all before the day before the race, and then
Mhm,
we ended
mhm.
up bonding over that. So, doing more of these kinds of things, and I'll just say quickly without diving too deep in them, um, I want more unstructured time in 2026. I'm gonna initiate more things rather than waiting for things to come to me. So, I think magnetized sounds like it's the perfect word for you, and I think mine might be more slightly active pursuit of seeking and experimentation and like not that you're not doing that, but it's just it's a little bit different. We're trying to accomplish, I think, more
Engagement?
novelty.
Engagement? Could that be the word? Engaging? I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's a
You
work
gotta
in
float that.
progress.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
you
work
gotta
in
float that one.
progress.
Sorry, continue.
But I'm just gonna go through this list really quick. So more novelty, more male connection that may involve some competition or a physical element to it, in addition to that cooperation piece that, and but not networking, just this connection through shared experience. More sensation, which translates to
Uh-huh,
more feeling, which translates to more aliveness, more creative output with no intended audience, just creation for the sake of joy and sharing what's within us, as opposed to, having an avatar in mind or an audience in mind.
mm,
So that could look like playing more guitar or piano or
uh-huh,
writing or speaking or whatever, but just again, leading from authenticity, coming from a place of just sharing me, being fully me.
mhm,
More boundaries around what we talked about, shoulds, um, letting go of projects that were meant for a past version of me, leaning into the future version of me. I mentioned the more male connection, also more feminine energy and that healthy connection and polarity with women, um, who are not Heather, who are not, and not in a physical way as, but just having that balance, that yin and yang, that masculine and feminine. And when I look back a while now, working in public health and working in wellness, you go to a public health conference and it's like 80-90% women. And so I had a lot of colleagues and friends. I was surrounded by women, and
mhm, mhm,
being part of a men's group now and spending, a lot of time in connection with men, I realized I miss that feminine
mhm.
contribution to my life, and the emotionality and the feeling and the depth that the richness that brings. And the last two are more embodied leadership, leading by example. We are our brand, right? So, just stepping into that and realizing that the know and trust, that charisma is psychological and physiological,
Mhm,
right? Not
mhm.
intellectual. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
being our full selves will attract the right people from the heart, right? Not from the attributes of your coaching, right? It's not about the details, it's about you, right? And me. And then the last is one big, slightly scary yes, something, and I just posted last week around looking for ideas, suggestions for this, which we call a misogi. something that will and that really reframes things because so many times our mind, I mean, you talked about the limiter, right? Our mind dismisses things that we think that we just can't, it's impossible, right?
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
out of our reach. So why even
mhm.
try? And when you reframe it to there's a good chance you will not do it, that opens up probably 10x possibilities of things that you could pursue.
Mhm.
So um I want I distilled this down to one line that I need more frictionless contact with life, not more improvement. So things that fuel my aliveness, the richness of the things, more quality, more depth, more richness, not just more.
Beautiful, beautiful way to put the bow on it. Not just more, but yeah, more depth, more quality. Yeah. Yeah, it's denseness, right? The alive density of aliveness per unit of time, right? That's it. How can we maximize that? And this is it. This is part of it, right? Getting clear on what works and what doesn't, right? So now, once you put all of this down and you make this your criteria, it's so easy to say no to things without emotion because we do lean in a lot with our feminine energy, but for the day-to-day opportunities that come up, you need to be able to quickly, nope, this is not aligned. This is not for me. I'm not going to lose any more time exploring it. Yes, it's good to do different things and explore, but you can't always be in that exploration phase, right? It's like a science experiment. The hypothesis is just the beginning. Then you got to actually experiment and then you finalize, right? So getting clear on what lights you up, what can maximize that denseness, the frictionless, the leadership, these things, being consistent, implementing, make sure that those pillars are every day in the things you're doing. I mean, our next year is going to be explosive. I'm excited to make it to the end of 2026 and look back at this podcast and be like, holy shit, here we are with 1 million subscribers, right? Just because we can, 100,000 million, I don't know, but doing things that are aligned and exciting and make you feel alive, it's unstoppable that it gains the momentum it needs because the universe loves us being in play with purpose and in alignment. I think that's present. I would almost even throw that in there. That's probably the definition of being alive. Play, purpose, presence, right? That is what being alive is. And how do you know? You feel it.
That's right. That's right. Any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. So tonight, yes, tonight will be the number will change on the calendar, 2026. I'm not sure if I should have date marked it, but it's part of the fun. Closing thoughts is every day is day one. We are the script writers of our story, and we get to choose how the character will come out at the end. Doesn't matter the past that you have or the ideas of the memories of which parts you identify with or not. You can rewrite your story now. And part of this reflection is good because just like a business, you treat your life and you say, what worked? What didn't? What are we going to focus on implementing more of? What are we going to focus on removing? And we do it to the biggest things in our lives, the things that we're working on, but we don't do it to our lives. So being intentional about how we purposefully move forward to include more aliveness is one of the best gifts we can give to ourselves and everyone else around us. So be the gift, be intentional, find more ways to feel alive in your day to day, and you'll never regret it. And you won't be afraid of dying.
That's right. Yeah, I'll just conclude by saying something that I repeat all the time to my clients. People often come to me and want to know what they should add to what they're already doing. You know, what on the health side, what supplements, what exercises, what protocols, right? And I always start with what can we remove? And I think when we have these 8 gardens that we're trying to sometimes water all of them simultaneously, the 8 gardens that you spoke of and that Abundance has on their tool for sort of accountability and progress through the year. It's very difficult to balance everything all at once, right? And I think sometimes we try to do that. And so within a day, right, within a week, within a month, within a year, and I like to start with like, what is the one thing? And this is a famous book, right? That's the title of a famous book, right? The one thing. But what is the one thing I must do today? And sometimes knock it out first thing, right? And then you get that momentum. And often that one thing is the thing that we're most avoiding. And it's the one thing that will change everything.
Mm.
Bigger picture. Right. And so as Benjamin Hardy talked about in person in October, his new book, The Science of Scaling, you have a greater likelihood of doing something this year than if you say, I'm going to do this in the next 10 years. And you have a
Mm.
greater likelihood of doing, actually accomplishing something this month. Well, next month, because it's the end of it's the last day of this month. But in a month than you do in a year. And this seems completely paradoxical and counterintuitive, but the reason is you have to move everything out of the way. You have to remove so that
Mm.
that is the one thing that's left. And it brings to mind the Michelangelo creating David. I don't know if he actually said this, right? But it's a famous quote attributed to him that he said, I didn't create David. I removed all the rock that was not this magnificent sculpture, this magnificent statue. And I think if we think in that terms, it's kind of flipping things in a way that we sometimes overlook, that simplicity and that clarity is invaluable. So we have a greater likelihood of accomplishing something when we move the timeline shorter.
Yeah. Yeah. The power of clarity. It's where it
Yeah.
all starts. It's where
Yeah.
it all starts. Yeah. The farmer that says, when is asked, how did you grow this beautiful garden? What did you do to it? Said, I didn't do anything to it. I removed everything that stopped them from
That's,
growing.
that's right.
So we're at a point where life is more a removal, a game of subtraction, not addition. We don't need more things. We need to remove more things, remove
That's
the
right.
noise, remove the fuss, remove the distractions. Getting clear to that one thing is very powerful, because when you have 10 things to do in the day, it's easy to drown that one thing in the list, in the bottom of that barrel. But when you only have that one thing you have to choose for the day that will move your life forward, there's no avoiding it. Knock that out, and doesn't matter what else you do that day, it's already a win.
And I think I'm just going to translate this from the head to the heart because we can think this is the thing we need to do, right? That's a logical analysis. This is the thing
Mhm.
I need to do. This is of all these priorities, this is the top thing I need to do. AI can do that for us, right? The heart says, why is this the thing I need to do? Why is it important? And then you ask the why behind the why. And then there's there's no option. There's no excuses. There's a richness, there's a depth to it and a density to it that brings it so clearly in focus that it becomes not something you should do, not something you must do, but something you get to do. Here we've come full circle again.
We are very lucky that we get to do this and share this with the world because yeah, it's from here. This is what people connect with and makes them feel most alive. So it's been a pleasure and an honor. It's an amazing opportunity that we have to remind others to get clear, remove the noise, and prioritize being alive. That density through play, through purpose, through presence. It's the most rewarding gift we can give to ourselves and
That's right.
to the people around us.
Well, happy New Year, brother.
Happy New Year to you too. I'll see you in a few weeks,
In a
but I'll see
few
you next year. Thank you so much. So stay playful, my friends.
stay playful, my friend.